Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. In today's tutorial we are doing yet another plaid. This is a simple and easy plaid that anybody who's getting their feet wet in the tumbler community can certainly do. So everything of course will be listed and linked in the description box for any of the products that I use. Please feel free to also check that out for all of my social media, as well as discount codes for glitter and a lot of other things as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So today I'm starting with a 24-ounce plump from the Steel Magnolia. I have spray painted this with 2 coats of Midnight Blue from Rustoleum 2 times. I then have also put 1 coat of epoxy on my cup. So I did decide to epoxy my cup first because I knew there was going to be a lot of vinyl work, and in case I needed to pull up any of my vinyl, I didn't want to risk scuffing or removing any of my paint. So now with that 1 coat, I am just taking a 220 grit sanding block and just sanding that top rim and giving it a light sand around the entire cup, just because my cup had been sitting for a few days and I want to make sure that my next coats of epoxy are going to stick to the cup and adhere. So now I'm just cleaning it off with a paper towel and a little bit of 91% rubbing alcohol so I can get ready for applying all of my vinyl work, which is going to give us that gorgeous plaid look. Okay, so I wanted to start by showing you guys my canvas in Design Space. So this is all of the vinyl pieces that I will be using to apply to my cup. So I have the gray rectangles, which are my vinyl strips, which are going to be 0.25 in width and about 11.5 inches long. I then have a smaller set of vinyl that is gray, which will actually be white, and that is 0.15 in width or in height and 11.5 inches long. I then have orange, some strips of orange that I'm going to be using as well. That is the same as the last ones, the smaller ones, so 0.15 in height and then 11.5 inches tall. And then I typed in using a font that I downloaded from Creative Fabrica to get the word thankful on there, which I'll be printing or cutting in gold. And then this flower pumpkin set right here, this image, that image is actually something I purchased from Etsy. It already comes together, so all I have to do is size it accordingly, which is about 3 inches in width for that image, and then have my Cricut cut it on my printable vinyl. So let's go ahead and get into applying all of these items to the cup to give us that gorgeous look. So I, of course, am going to start with the thicker strips first. And so what I end up doing is I want to make sure that the 4 strips that I have are going to fit. So I'm just going to measure around my cup just to make sure that I'm going to have enough room to get all 4 on there evenly. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my thicker strips first, and I'm going to place one down as straight as I can, using my cup cradle as a way to keep my cup straight and not rolling away from me as I'm applying my vinyl, which is certainly a big tip and has really helped me to make sure that I'm applying a vinyl straight. And then once I get that one on there nice and straight, I'm going to flip it completely over and place the second strip directly across from that first strip. So you'll see that I'm placing it directly across from that and then flipping it on its side and putting the third strip straight in the middle, and then doing exactly what I did with the first 2 strips and making sure that that 4th strip is directly across from that 3rd strip I placed. So this is how I'm going to make sure that I'm getting it pretty evenly on to the cup and that everything is pretty evenly spaced. Now I'm going to be placing the orange strips. So the orange strips I'm going to be placing directly between each of the white strips. So you notice that I'm not measuring anything, and I am just not someone who likes to measure as I go. If you really want to, you definitely could use, measuring tape or something to make sure you're getting everything evenly spaced. For me, I just like to kind of place and go and pull up the vinyl if I need to, if I feel like something's crooked. But I really just like to kind of place and go. It kind of just makes it a little bit easier, I feel like, for me. So to place the final strips around my cup, I am measuring the length of my cup, and what I kind of decided was in order to get all 4 of the strips on, I was going to have to place them about 1 inch or so apart. And again, I'm mostly eyeballing this, just placing it where I feel it's going to look the best. So again, you definitely could use a measuring tape and make sure everything is super even, but I just like to go with the flow and kind of just remove and place the vinyl strips around the cup wherever I feel like they need to go. So once I've wrapped that around the first bottom section of my cup, just using my craft knife to cut off any of the extra vinyl, and then going back through and using my measuring tape to just separate them and make sure they're pretty evenly spaced as best as I can. Nothing too crazy. As you'll see here, I was like, that's too far, and I ended up going with about an inch, maybe an inch and a half apart, because I wanted to be able to get all 4 on this cup. So for these horizontal lines around the cup, placing them is difficult. And I say difficult, I find that placing vinyl around the circumference of a cup versus, it laying down kind of in that vertical way is more difficult. So using my cup cradle and turning the cup and holding the vinyl straight is the easiest I find to make sure that I'm getting my vinyl on straight. Now, every once in a while I do get a line that goes a little wonky, but it's super simple and easy to just readjust by pulling back up on that same vinyl strip and just replacing that down. So this is why I wanted to do that first coat of epoxy, because I didn't want to risk scuffing or ripping up any of the paint that I had applied and then having to do some sort of patch job on the cup with the vinyl placed. So I'm just going to cut off the rest of the excess vinyl, and then we can move on to placing my gold strips. All right, so the final strips that are going to go on here are gold strips, and so this is actually nail tape. So I purchased this nail tape from Amazon. I'll link it in the description box below. I did also use this nail tape in my last plaid video, the orange plaid that I did, to give it just a more distinguished and polished look. But I'm using this nail tape, which is very easy to use, and just placing the nail tape in a straight line very close to those thick white vinyl strips. So I end up going back and doing a vinyl strip on the other side of that thick piece of white vinyl as well. So I do end up going back and doing that again. And so this plaid look that I'm doing as I'm applying these gold strips, this plaid look is something that I just kind of did in my mind, if that makes sense. You definitely could use a plaid image as a reference, which I certainly would encourage anyone who's never done plaid with just vinyl to do. But I really just liked seeing how all of these colors were coming together and coming to play in this vinyl work. So this is a very detailed cup in the sense of it is a lot of placement of decals and vinyl. But all in all, I feel like this is far easier than applying glitter and having to do square by square. Especially because you can just remove the piece of vinyl versus having to figure out how you're going to cover up something if you accidentally place a glitter color in the wrong spot. So I'm just going to finish up placing the rest of this vinyl here. Again, so I have 2 strips very close to the thick white strips and then all the way around the bottom, simply separating the 2 sections or the section right in half. So now that all my vinyl has been placed, I am using polyacrylic, which I'll post a picture of right here. This is what I'm using to make sure my vinyl is going to stay down while I apply my coat of epoxy. So I'm just doing a very thin coat of this polyacrylic with my silicone brush just to make sure that everything lays down and it's drama-free when I apply my coat of epoxy. So now that that is done, I'll leave it on the turner for about an hour and then apply another coat of epoxy. So now that my coats of epoxy are dry, I then am going to be placing my 2 final pieces of vinyl here. So this is the printable vinyl that I printed with this floral image and cut with my Cricut. I did, while this was on its sheet, apply 1 coat of clear gloss spray over this image. Because I have an inkjet printer, the ink tends to smudge if I don't seal it. If you do own a laser printer, you typically won't have to seal printable vinyl, but I do seal this. It is a gloss printable vinyl, which I'll also mention, as I don't normally seal any of my matte vinyls. So this is then my thankful image, or my thankful cut file that I printed, or cut rather, in Cricut Design Space. I'm going to just apply that as well directly under that pumpkin floral image so that I can apply my final coat of polyacrylic and get this back on the turner. So again, with my polyacrylic, just a thin coat over the top of these 2 images to make sure I have a drama-free finish and nothing starts to lift during the epoxy curing process. So back on the turner for 2 final coats, as you guys know, and here is the final look for this cup. absolutely love how this cup turned out. If you love plaids as much as I do, feel free to check out the other plaid videos on my channel, as well as follow me on social media, and I will see you guys again next week. Bye!